Good evening. Thank you for joining us for our monthly community meeting. I'm Chief Colleen Jacobs. I hold these virtual community meetings on Facebook on the second Wednesday of each month at 6 p.m. This year, our community meetings are going inside the department to give you a closer look at different units within our police department. Tonight, we are streaming live from our evidence room to learn all about what they do here. Joining me now is Tracy, our evidence supervisor, along with two of our evidence technicians, Amy and Bailey. Thank you for talking with me tonight, ladies.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, first of all, tell us how many people are in your unit and give us an idea of what a typical day looks like for you.
Okay. I supervise 4 evidence technicians, and I feel really pleased to know that they care about the evidence department or the evidence unit and the police department. They realize the responsibilities that they have in regards to booking in the property and taking care of it. We kind of consider ourselves almost librarians of the evidence, and that means that it's up to us to make sure that when things come in, that we're following the chain of custody through from the start to the finish. We're making sure things are tagged, that signatures are signed, that sort of thing. That's really our responsibility to make sure that that is done. And first thing in the mornings, we come in and start intaking all the property so that we can start that chain of custody immediately from what the officers have given us. So.
Great. What are some of the different types of evidence that you categorize?
Okay, we get asked this a lot, like what types of evidence do we have that comes into our department? And it's all kinds of things, almost anything that you can imagine. So it's kind of a fun job to see what's coming in and how we're going to manage it, make sure to keep the integrity of each thing that's coming in. I have to say that we have decided that it's easier to organize things and be able to file things away in same locations, as far as like maybe having a drug room, a firearm room, valuables room, and then we have general rooms as well for other properties. And the thing that's really good about that is those 3 things I mentioned with drugs, firearms, and valuables, they're high-risk items, and we're really happy to be able to have them behind double locked doors, and that secures them even more so. But we get all kinds of things coming in.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so we're here in our intake room, and maybe you could show us a little bit of the process of what happens with evidence when it's brought in by an officer or a detective.
Okay. This is the intake room. The officers are this is where they start. They may do a little bit of their entering in their cars, on their computers, and their vehicles, but then they come in here to make sure that they can package the items properly. And so in this room, we've got a lot of different kinds of supplies here. And so they can choose what's going to best fit the needs for the property that they are bringing in. We have even just a couple of examples here. When they do come in, they're going to print their tag. We ask them to categorize their evidence into 4 item statuses. And that is, we've got seized property, and that is property that needs to possibly go to court, or it's going to be help with the investigations and things like that. But we've also got safekeep, which is any property with owner information. We have found property as well, and that's obvious that that's something that somebody brings in that they have found, or that they have found along as they're on a crime scene or whatever. And then we also have things that are booked in as disposal, to be able to dispose of it. And you might think, like, what would they book in to be disposed and stuff? But they may have, like, say, a pipe, some paraphernalia that somebody finds on the corner, and it's not for a crime. It's not going to be used in any way. They don't have a case for it or anything. but they can't just throw that away. So they'll bring things like that here so that we can destroy it properly. And some of the things that they have options. Like, I thought it might be kind of fun for you to see. This is an actual BB gun that was booked in, but these are some of the supplies that we have to be able to offer for them that will secure the guns or whatever they bring in this type of boxes. As you can see, we have a tag here. They have to sign. This is just a BB gun, but even for real firearms, they're going to put a tag on there that will show that the weapon is cleared and that sort of thing. And then it's our job to make sure, did the weapons cleared sticker get on it? Is it taped and secured? Everything they bring in has to be sealed, and so that nobody can tamper with it, right? And that protects the officer and us. Once it's sealed, it's not opened again until it's time to purge it. And so even with things like this with backpacks, it's kind of interesting how the officers are really creative to be able to seal these types of things off. Sometimes they'll put them in bags. And this one, what they did is they moved everything from these side compartments into the middle, and then they zip tied it shut. So that's how we know that these things are secure and packaged without being tampered with and that sort of thing. We even have things such as currency envelopes, and there's 3 signatures that count as the money goes in there, and this helps us to be able to track it, and then it's sealed inside this too. So we're very careful with the way that we handle the property that's coming in and to track it.
Okay. And should we show everyone our lockers here behind us?
Yeah, in fact, you know what? I just did kind of a mock little phone right here. And this is what they bring it to. These are the lockers. And this one's already being used. It's very secure because they will just open it up. And I'm going to do this one right here because we're going to take you to the other side and show you the back side. And so they'll place their property in there once it's all sealed and tagged. We do not accept anything unless it's tagged in here. And the tag will say like the case number. It will say the officer information, the date, the description, things like that, so that we're able to have that in our records management system from the start. So all they do is put it in there and push the button, and it's locked and they can't get it. I should show you, before we move to the other side, we even have refrigerated units that they can store blood and urine or whatever is coming in that may need to be refrigerated in there. So, but this is the intake room. Now we're walking into the receiving room. And so first thing in the mornings when we come in, we want to make sure that we start that chain of custody and do the intake on it. And so this is what we see on our side. And here are the lockers. Here is the phone that I put in there, okay? And then we unlock it and it's ready to be used again. And then of course we've got the fridge things down there too. So it comes in sections so we can open the door and see several of the little cabinet lockers all together. And so this is the room that we start logging all the property in. And that's why it's called the receiving room. And like I said, it's first thing in the morning, property is logged into our system so that that chain of custody starts right then. So we're going to go back to the intake room then.
Great, that's super interesting. That's part of the department that I don't even get to see. So you guys get to see it every day. Let's see, we're getting a few questions in, but we'll save those for the last here. So as you take different types of evidence through this process, how do you ensure that they're kept secure?
Okay. Since we got this new building, This is very nice to have these safety factors. If you look in every room, we have a camera, and so that helps things. It helps monitor things here to make sure that everything is on the up and up. And also, if you look, we have our high-risk items. We've got not only cameras, but there's biometrics going into the evidence room. And so only the evidence people have access to that. And if anybody else goes in there, they must be accompanied by us. So we know that the evidence back there is secure. And then it also helps the way that the officers package their property to make sure that everything is sealed as far as that goes too.
Okay, that's great. Now, not all evidence goes straight to shelving or storage, right? So give us an instance where you're working with either the state lab or a forensic unit, and what kind of part that plays with what happens to the evidence.
Okay. That question's a little tricky because whenever we get the property in, we always have a location for it, so that if anybody comes along, it's easy to locate immediately. But it goes into more of a temporary hold if it's going to like the state crime lab or the tox lab, that sort of thing. We've got a special box for that. We don't directly file it where it's going to be placed for the permanent hold time period. And so we put it in this box, and that helps us to flag to know that those are the items that have been requested to go to the state crime lab. And they process a lot of our DNA, and then drugs and pills and things like that. And then the toxicology lab will do more of blood type items and things like that. And it's funny because they're together, the buildings are right next to each other, but they do two different jobs with it. And so we always have to explain that to the officers to help them to understand that too. We make sure that we take it weekly. It has to be delivered, and if there's ever a time that it needs to be rushed, we will take it more than that. We'll go to the state crime lab more if we need to. And we are responsible to do all the entries into the state system before we take it there. And then that's the other really important part of our job, right, girls, is that we have to make sure that we do checkouts and returns on everything that leaves here.
Yeah, for that chain of custody, right?
It is.
Yes.
It continues the chain of custody. So even if a detective is coming down and needs to look at something, it's checked out, and then we do the return. And so we do the entering for State Crime Lab and Tox Lab, and there's a couple of other things through forensics that have temporary holds as well till they process it. And then when we do the return, it will go back to its permanent location.
Okay, no, that's great. It sounds super organized.
Yeah.
So with evidence that needs to be returned to its owner, how do you notify someone, and how do they get their property back?
Any property that's ready to be released to an owner, or a person is sent notification, and we call that notification a notice to claim property form. It has two copies. One, if the officer is with the person and he's taking the property temporarily, he'll give them one piece, and it'll have the address of the police department, our phone number. It'll have the case number, and then if it's a found item, and let's say it's a wallet, it has an ID or something like that, the officer will put their name, address, any information that they have, and we'll mail this to them so that they know where to come and pick up their property. And it says on here that they need to make an appointment so that we can have their property ready for them so they don't have to be waiting. Yeah, if I've missed anything, please add it. I'm still new, so
We're
we're
really happy
learning and
to have Bailey with us. She is just a few weeks into this, but she has learned really fast. And this is really important to be able to know that we've notified them. A lot of times there's a carbon copy too, and so we keep one to scan to know that they've been notified, and the other one is mailed out to the owner and that sort of thing. We always recommend, if the officers can, give it directly to them, but if not, we are able to mail it to them.
Okay.
So that was good.
Yeah, like you said, we are really, really glad to have Bailey aboard.
Yes,
Since,
we are.
She's been with us for a few weeks now. So what happens with evidence if there's no owner and it's not needed anymore, how long do you typically keep evidence?
We have different categories of evidence. So we have found and safe keep, and those are held for 90 days. That's when we send this form out to owners. Then we have misdemeanor crimes. Those are held for 2 years. Felonies are for 4. Once we've reached those dates, we do a lot of research to see if the court case is closed. We have to contact the DA, get their permission to get rid of things. We have to have a detective tell us we can get rid of it. Once we've gotten all the proper authorizations to get rid of things, we have several ways that we properly destroy things. Documents, anything with personal info gets shredded. What else do we? We remove any info off of it that would identify anyone before we have it destroyed properly.
Okay, great.
We work really hard to make sure what needs to be returned to owners is
Yes.
sent to owners. We really try to find them if it's a safe keep item, we want to be able to return it to them.
things,
And
yes.
just to make note of that, we run an ad in the Tribune and the Deseret News. We have a list that is on our countertop and over in City Hall. We also have a list on our intranet page. So if anybody does perchance lose something, they can look online and see, have we received a bike for this month? Have we received, found money? And then they can call and we can see if we can attach them as the owner or whatever. And we also have a Utah public website that we list that on too. And so we do try to release it to them, but if we don't, there's other alternatives too. Do you want to tell them a little bit about the auction or?
We auction anything auctionable
Mhm.
is sent to auction, and it goes in. It's the public.
It's
the
public use.
fund.
So that
For the
helps the city too. But like I said, we try to return it if it's not possible. We still utilize that, and it goes to public use, the funds that are from that too. So that's helpful to the city as well.
Okay. Now, Amy, I'm sure you've seen some strange and some shocking, maybe even some sad stuff since you've been working with evidence. How do you deal with the emotional aspect of your job?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of things. I talk a lot with coworkers. We have an in-house therapist if there's anything really bad, but mostly just talk amongst each other, talks to each other. But yeah, we have that therapist if we need that.
Okay, great. Now, we've got a few questions that have come in through online. Let's see. What is the largest piece of evidence you've had to process, and what is the most unusual piece of evidence that you've processed?
Largest.
I have to say, we get all kinds. I could tell you, could go on and on with unusual things, but we've had teeth, and we had a piece of a tongue. We had
fingertips.
So we've had.
Yeah, we've had things you wouldn't think we would have.
Yeah. As far as large pieces, I know we've had like a couch before.
We have a couch. We've had beds,
Mm-hmm.
doors. We frequently get vehicle bumpers. So, all kinds of stuff.
Okay. How did you guys get into this line of work?
I feel very fortunate that I fell into this through a friend when the job opening came along. And I really kept my fingers crossed. I really felt like I could be helpful in the unit. And so when I did get the job, I really appreciated that. And I feel like it's been a wonderful opportunity for me to be able to help. I know when Amy talked about some of the sad things that we go through, I know we're not always on scene to see things, but we're handling the property that's coming in, and it is emotional. And the thing I do try to tell myself is that we're doing good. We're doing good to be able to help facilitate what needs to be done here for the police department. So how about you, Bailey, for your being so new? What do you think?
Yeah, if somebody wants to pursue a career,
Yes.
how would you suggest they go about it?
My dad was actually an officer here for 30 years, so I've always loved and respected law enforcement, and I've always dreamed of working specifically at the West Valley Police Department. Here I am. I'm surprised they wanted another one of us, but
Oh, no,
they
we
fell
were
for
happy.
it. But I haven't seen a ton in my 3 weeks here, but one thing I learned from my dad is that he was really good at separating work and home. Whenever he came home, he was a dad,
Mhm.
and I know that he may have been on call. He had to constantly think of things, but he had that really good work-life separation, and I try to practice that. When I go home, I'm home, and it really helps me.
Great, yeah. Another question we have is, what happens when you run out of space?
Do you know what? We try, our goal always is, it's not always the space. I say that, but then legislature things coming in are making us maintain property a lot longer. But the goal is always to try to purge or take care and get it out the door 100% of what is coming in, so that we can stay at an equal level. And that's not always possible. And like I said, things are changing where we have to hold retention times a lot longer, but that's always our goal. So we're hoping that we can hang in there and utilize the space for a while before we get to that point of running out.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. Now here's a question for all three of you. All of this seems extremely organized. Are you this organized at home?
Oh,
Sure.
I'm not. I'm not. My desk isn't organized, but I'm organized back here, so that's the important thing.
yeah. We are really proud of our filing system and the way that we've set up this department and stuff. And we try to take that home. Sometimes we're tired of doing it here.
Yeah.
So anyway, no, it's been good.
Great. So let's see, we've got another one coming in. How do you protect yourself from hazardous evidence like fentanyl?
Oh, do you know what? That's interesting that you would say that. It's packaged, and when we take things to the state crime lab, it used to be that we could only take 1 or 2 pills that they would test out of this full amount. But since fentanyl has come into play, they will take the whole thing so that we don't have to open it and mess with it. But over here in this corner right here, I don't know if you're able to see, this is a fume hood. Officers used to do build tests out while they were out on scenes, but now they're not allowed to do that because of the situation with that. And now they come in here and they use this fume hood, and that helps protect them too. Or if there's any doubt or any possibility that it is going to be harmful, they just immediately package it. We take it to the state crime lab, and they have capabilities to test it.
Okay, that's good. Let's see, is there anything else you think you should share about the evidence unit?
Like I said, we work really hard to maintain it properly and to make sure that it is taken well care of, so that if it is being returned to owners, we care about it being given to them the way that we brought it in. Yes. And we're here to help them. One thing, if ever they are coming into evidence, it really does help if they can either call first to schedule an appointment or go online. And part of that is because we need to prepare to make sure that it is moved to safekeep and it's not a piece of property that is seized that needs to remain here for the courts.
Mm-hmm.
And so it saves them time a little bit, because if it's in that circumstance, then we can get, see what's going to happen with it. Can it be released or not? It's best for them to call so that they don't waste their time. If we have to say we can't release it, it's not safe to keep yet.
Yeah, that was my next question. What happens if somebody doesn't make an appointment and just shows up?
We still try to facilitate it.
Yeah.
But like I said, chances are, it's not always, we're not always helpful to them at the time. It's best if they call. We can check the case and let them know what's going on. But we still will try to help anybody who comes in.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Let's see. Any other questions from online? Looks like we're good. So thank you for joining us this evening. Our next community meeting will be Wednesday, April 9th, and we'll be talking about the Crisis Intervention Team. Thank you and good night.